Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our September meeting. Obviously, we're still operating under the directive from the state permitting these electronic meetings, so we're going to continue to do that. I'd like to call the meeting to order and with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. Does Karen, do you have that?
Hold on.
Okay, everyone, thank you. Here we go. I pledge allegiance
To the flag,
United States,
United States of
America,
America,
and to the republic
to the republic
which
for which it
which it
stands,
stands,
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with
with
liberty
liberty,
and justice
for all.
for all.
We're getting better at that.
I have to say, we are getting better at that. Welcome, everyone. Before we get started, just a quick announcement or two. I have under one of our minutes, we have to see if we can add our September 10th special minutes. Roland has those. We'll display those when we get there. And I believe I'm going to get a request to move one of our routine applications over to non-routine, but we'll see what happens with that. We have documents available to share for the most part. I think we're ready to go if need be. And we'll proceed. And I just thank you everyone in advance. That brings us to item number 2, our routine applications. I will call on Mr. Drake, welcome, for calling of our routine applications of the evening.
Okay, we have 3 routine applications. NW1 from Nathaniel Withall for $160,000 and appropriation for rehab. The second one is HD1 from the Health Department, $67,736 and approval to use funds. And the third one is ED2 from the Board of Education, $2,725,000, which is a release of conditions on Cardinal Field.
Those items that moved before us. Do I have a motion to separate any of the items? Ms. Moriarty, did you want to? Okay. Any member? Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Okay. Again, just so we know, routine applications I put there normally, so we're not inviting department heads, consultants, etc. That may be needed. So I didn't think that was necessary after hearing all the meetings. Discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote. Okay. Item ED2, just so you know, is a release of conditions by our board. It's not an appropriation. So everybody's clear on that. Mr. Drake, would you call the roll?
Yes. I'm going to do it in the order I see it on my screen. Mr. Mason,
Yes.
Ms. Tarkington,
Yes.
Mr. Raymer,
Yes.
Mr. Deuce,
Yes,
Mr. Weisbrod. I think you're on mute.
Yes.
Ms. Moriarty,
Yes.
Ms. Hess,
Yes.
Ms. Erickson,
Yes.
Ms. Cruiser. I think you're on mute as well.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Fasiotis,
Yes.
Ms. Crumick.
Yes.
That was 12-0.
Technically, you have to give your vote, Bill.
Pardon me?
Your
Oh,
vote in favor.
myself. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 3 is our assessors report, and
Okay. Good afternoon.
Lauren, we may have lost you.
yeah, we may have.
Hang on.
I brought you over from panel.
Yep,
from
here I am.
attendance.
Okay, I gotcha. You got me. I think I'm here. Okay.
Yep.
Good afternoon, members of the BT. I'd like to present the Assessors Report for September 2020. First thing is the Board of Assessment Appeals met on September 10th for the motor vehicles. The meetings were held here in the Town Hall meeting room, and there were 81 appeals, and they adjusted 78 adjustments, and there's a tax loss associated with that of $6,171. So nothing of, it's just the usual suspects that came in again this year. The senior filing that I have on page 3, this is your final number due to the executive order that extended the deadline from May 15th to August 15th. So the final total is now These are all the totals as of August 15th, and they're on page 3. They have changed slightly from the previous, from my July report. And finally, personal property declarations are going to be printed. They're going to be sent out by the end of the week to all business owners. In addition to doing that this year, we're going to have some of the staff out there canvassing the town just to confirm whether what businesses are still in business and what businesses have left. We've also contacted a couple other the Chamber of Commerce to try to figure out who we may have lost over the past year or so. We are also going to continue to have any businesses that wish to have the option to file electronically. And the due date is still going to be November 1st. There is no executive order that's going to change any of these dates. Okay. Anybody have any questions for me?
In normal fashion, I will ask everybody today to, use our hand raising. Ms. Cruiser?
Yeah, hi. Okay, I'm unmuted. Lauren, just a very quick question. And the number is obviously de minimis, but on those motor vehicle appeals, the fact that there were 81 appeals and then 78 of which were adjusted, is that sort of typical? Is there something with the process that lends itself to, such a high percentage of it being technically, I guess, wrong?
So 76 of those or 75 of those are one owner, and he comes in every year, and it's one of our limo services. And so that's the majority of them. And I think we have maybe 5 or 6 others that come in, and it's really, it's just the same. It's the same taxpayer every year.
Okay, all right. Enough said. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Ms. Tarkington?
Yes, I was wondering if Ms. Elliott would just update the BET and the public on the revaluation, which is my understanding is deferred from October 1st, 2020 to 2021. And then the follow-on revaluation would continue to be in 2025. But would you like to give us an update on the postponement?
Sure. So what is happening at the moment is we've just actually are finalizing the contracts with the revaluation companies of Tyler Technologies and JF Ryan to extend the reval from October 1st, 2020 to October 1st, 2021. What will now happen is that we will start or resume some of the inspections probably in the spring. I do have staff out there right now that are strictly doing the building permits and certificate of occupancies right now. So we do have people in the field, but we're going to probably wait until the spring before we totally restart the revaluation process. Not until I actually sign the grand list in January will we have the companies back here and up and running. We'll be preparing for them, but we've just kind of basically had to push everything off for 1 year. And so this year's grand list is going to be basically a list as though we weren't going to do a revaluation. So we're just going forward with the collection of all and valuation of all the properties that had new construction building permits and certificate of occupancies. Okay, but yes, and then after we do it in 2021, we will not be on a 5-year extension from that. We'll only be on a 4-year extension. We'll be doing another evaluation in 2025.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chairman, if there are no more questions, I would move that we accept the assessor's report.
I would second.
I have a motion to accept the assessor's report, seconded. Discussion? Do I need a roll call vote?
No.
I'm going to call that 12-0-0. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lauren. Thank you.
Thank you.
That moves us to item number 4 on the agenda, which is our controller's report. Controller Peter Minarski, there he is.
Good afternoon, everyone. On the controller's report, I'll start out in the very first section. The auditors are going to be doing the audit virtually this year, and they're scheduled to come in, or not come in, but come in virtually on Monday. You can see the section there where on the budgetary basis, we had a slight surplus. And on the GAAP basis, you can see where the unassigned dropped 1.7. I won't get into this much. It's on the agenda later when we talk about the biannual fund balance and debt policy reviews. But I had a question from Ms. Moriarty, and regarding the year-ending audit, there was two funds that were directly, well, there was three, but two of them were hurt by the COVID experience. The first one was the school lunch program. These revenues were short on a budgetary basis, almost 1.3 million, which was offset by a expense surplus of 536,000. Unfortunately, on a budgetary basis, the school lunch program started out with a $55,000 surplus from June 30th, 2019, and ended up this year with a negative 736,264. That's $250,000. In the past, when the fund did not perform well for other reasons, we amortized the negative fund balance, which will be reflected in the budget going forward. Ms. Moriarty asked about, coincidentally, the other fund was the parking fund. As you all know, they stopped collecting on the meters, and there was a sharp drop in the revenues. The revenues on a budgetary basis were short almost 700,000, and the expenses were down about 800,000. The parking fund is an enterprise fund. So it's not your ordinary fund like the one I just discussed, the school lunch. For example, when we spend money on capital projects, we capitalize them, and then we amortize it through depreciation over a course of 20 years. So to keep it as simple, and we could talk about this in length at the end of the audit year, the fund balance, which has two components, there's the unrestricted and there's the assets that are invested, the capital projects that are capitalized minus the depreciation. The fund went down a couple 100,000 overall. Restricted went down about 400, and the assets went up about 200. So it's got 1 million. It's got an unrestricted fund balance of 1,998,000. And the fund, although it was hit pretty hard by COVID, still has a good fund balance. In July, they reversed the trend for meter collections, et cetera. So we'll keep an eye on that fund. And like the school lunch program, it might have an impact as far as subsidize it next year. Let me stop there, and just in case you have questions in this area before I get into COVID and FEMA.
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Mike?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to be acknowledged first. Pete, a question I asked in the budget committee meeting was, because of the school lunch fund and it was driven by COVID, do you think there's any chance that there's any potential, recovery grants, et cetera, that could help the school lunch fund?
I've heard anecdotally through Sean and the Board of Ed people, the revenues, no, but we would be getting the reimbursements for the tag, the money where tag was providing some transportation costs. Let's jump ahead. The school lunch on the COVID, I haven't gotten to COVID-19, but on the expense side, we've got 100,000, just under 100,000 that we're going to ask for on the expense side for reimbursement. So there will be some, and hopefully we can get about 100,000 back for the school lunch program.
Thank you.
Continuing, Peter?
Okay, going to go to the, Roland, you could put that back up on the COVID page. Megan is working diligently in two areas. We've got, Roland provided for the budget committee the expenses. They're in the report there in the third paragraph. 1.299 million are eligible expenses, but half of that is going to be reimbursed through the CARES Act on the Board of Ed side. And I know that you've seen, heard, probably seen and heard Sean report that they're potentially, when I say they're, that's public and private schools are potentially going to get up to $2 million of reimbursements. And he doesn't know at this point how the proration is going to be separate, divided between the public and the private schools. So the expenses that are out there are $1,299,000. And again, on the town side, rule number one, we have to go to FEMA first before we apply to on the state side. And if you drop down on the, or you can see it on the FEMA, can you go down one page? Well, I'll go to the,
It's on page 4.
yeah, I just, it's kind of small on my area there. The, again, the FEMA expenses on the, this is for Isaias, this is for the hurricane. Well, let me stop there. Was there any other questions on the COVID reimbursements before I get into the Isaias reimbursement? No. Okay. The FEMA is first recourse on FEMA reimbursements where it's Superstorm Sandy or any named storm is you have to go to insurance first. The insurance on the ICES is basically a $500,000 deductible. Megan is put in some numbers in there on some of the areas like the public works incurred $663,000, fire department 177, etc. So we go to insurance first. There's $500,000 deductible, and then the piece that's not reimbursed by the insurance, we go to FEMA, and there we get up to 75% of eligible cost. One of the reimbursements we're still working on is the tree damage. We get up to about $2,500 per tree with a limitation on that. So we're in the process of applying for both the COVID-19 reimbursements and the FEMA reimbursements. And we'll update you monthly as soon as we learn from FEMA in the state of Connecticut. Any other questions in the report?
May I ask, I just make a
Mike.
comment?
Well, hold on, Mike, Jeff has his hand up.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Mr. Kramer, followed by Mr. Turkington.
I'm happy to defer to Mrs. Darkington for a moment and ask my question after.
Ms. Tarkington?
I was just going to have Pete comment that yes, reports in the report that the town did receive $2.7 million of the MISA reimbursement in August. So I think that's very good news. This is the final payment of the progress payment. And I know Ms. Moriarty and I were, pleased to have that so rapidly after their application for the payment in June. And the state obviously needs to continue with its audit, and there will be some retainage that the town should also receive at a later date. But the timing of this was unexpected, given the timing of the application of being in June. So it's $2.7 million and represents a lot of hard work of people applying for this funding many, I'll say almost a decade ago.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you. Mr. Raymond?
Pete, I was just interested for at the top of page 4, that list of damages that you were detailing there. What property of the fire department for $178,000 was damaged? What property of the police department for $17,000? These total about $1 million, a little less than $1 million. Can you give us just a quick flavor of what property we've?
I can't. I don't have the detail. I could tell you that the public works is just basically cleanup. That's going to be the bulk of it. That's going to be the
fire department for 100.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. Maybe Roland can help on that one. I would have to go into the detail to see what consists of the 177.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's not take meeting time. But if it's not inconvenient for you, Pete, maybe later on by an email or else at a subsequent meeting, you can give us a sense of what happened? What damages did we suffer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Erickson?
Thank you. Pete, I know it's in your report on page 5, but I wonder if you could just take a moment to talk about the cash collections vis-a-vis the tax deferment program. I think we're in pretty good shape. I know we had some concerns early on, but if you want to just talk about that for a minute. And also, I'd be interested if you've heard anything about a potential renewal of that program for the January timeframe.
Okay. I don't recall which members of the BET were not present, but I'll go through it again. Natasha Yemitz gave an extensive overview at the BET IAC meeting on this, and she provided some details. We were on the $33.7 million short. We're hoping that her figures were through 2 weeks of September, and if we're hoping that we make up the difference in the last 2 weeks, because they have up until October 1st to pay without penalty. And then it'll only be apples to apples or oranges to oranges as far as the collection rate. The difference being we might lose a few dollars. And I say a few dollars because the interest rates, the earnings rates are very, very low. And also, I think, Mr. Drake, someone asked me that same question. And what I've said in the past months ago was my fear that this program would be renewed going into January. I've heard nothing as of yet as far as the program. It's got to come through executive order for the governor. But the same answer from last week is that I haven't heard anything where the program's going to be extended.
Thank you. Did you want to finish up, Peter, on the report?
Any other questions in the controller's report?
So,
Can I get a motion to accept the controller's report?
so I so move that we accept the controller's report.
I second.
Moved by Ms. Tarkington, seconded by Mr. Deuce. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining? Thank you very much. That moves us to, let me get back to my agenda. That moves us to our treasurer's report for calendar year. Let me just slide down. Discussion. Let me just quickly. Our treasurer's report for the month of July. This is July, Pete. This is July.
August.
July and August.
You should have.
Okay, I got it. I'm sorry. Okay.
We traditionally do both months because we take the month of August off, which would have been presented in July. But August is the more important one.
Okay.
So if you're going to vote to approve, I would approve just the August one.
Got it. Okay. Discussion?
I just wanted to make a comment. I
Yes.
had my hand raised.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I see it.
Want to acknowledge that the IAC committee, Andy's the chair of that committee, reviews this report each month with the treasurer and really provides a lot of information on the background. I don't remember that all prior IACs had done that. So I just want to acknowledge that I find the discussion really helpful in understanding this report.
Thank you very much. I agree. Can I get a motion to accept the treasurer's report for the month of August? Moved by Mr. Deuce, seconded by
I second.
Ms. Tarkington. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining.
I'm abstaining.
Okay. I think I would be accurate to report that at 11:01. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Item number 6, our standing committee reports. Obviously, I don't see anything checked off there. Under liaison reports, I have on the agenda Nathaniel Witherell check, but actually, my error, I do have a verbal report from retirement. So, Mr. Deuce.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Actually, they're both liaison reports, but let me start first with Nathaniel Witherell. Beth and I had the chance last week to attend by Zoom the board meeting for Nathaniel, and we have some good news really to report. First, the medical director for Nathaniel, Dr. Walsh, reported no new COVID cases over the last 4 weeks, and that's with everyone getting tested 25% every week, as both patients as well as staff. Very pleased about that. Second, we had a report from the new director of financial ops, Nunzio Ramo, and I was very pleased to see him on board. He had a series of very cogent schedules that I had not seen before, and I'm very appreciative. Very simply, no surprise here, for the first 2 months of this fiscal year, July and August, the billable hours or billable days was about 83% of theoretical capacity. So that's a little bit better than what I had feared. By comparison, the average use in January and February before the pandemic was about 94%. And the average in May and June, the low point during the pandemic there, the capacity was about 71%. So we're halfway back. In terms of financial performance, revenues were down a bit, obviously, but versus budget, we have a slight budget gain. Our revenues, we have a negative variance for July and August of about $629,000, primarily due to lower revenues. And we had a positive variance on expenses, primarily due to lower overhead. And that offset it. And so the net budget gain for the first 2 months of the year was about $637,000. Away from that, the executive director, John Mastronardi, discussed the continuing challenges they have in rebuilding the census. And no surprise, there's been a reluctance of many potential patients to go to a home like Nathaniel, and they're having challenges to encourage people to leave their homes and to seek treatment in the facility. And there's also a continuing problem with respect to the orthopedic rehab business. And as you know, the Nathaniel has been doing more medically complex rehabs as opposed to orthopedic. And in fact, one of the board members thought that perhaps the orthopedic rehab business will not be coming back at all. Two other small items that might be of interest to the VET. They're proposing to place a cell tower on the property. Clearly, this has to go through a whole panoply of approvals. But not only will raise some revenues, but also it will improve reception there, which, as you may know, it's very, very, for some reason, it's in a dead zone cell-wise. And lastly, Larry, the chairman of the board, Larry Simon, is considering seeking some additional hires or transforming some volunteers to aides to help with visitations. Right now, families can't go there and visit with their family in the facility itself. They have to go outside, and they're handicapped to doing more of that because they don't have the staff to accompany the patients outside. Anyway, so hopefully we'll be hearing more about that in the near future. A quick summary. Again, I'm very pleased to see the facility getting back to full management staff, and it's encouraging to see what little progress. It's encouraging to see the little progress we've seen in the last 2 months. Hopefully, that will continue for balance of the fall. Do I have any questions on Nathaniel? Yes, David.
No, I wanted to. I think you had also said you would give an update on IAC.
Well, actually, I'm going to give an update on the retirement board, but I'll make a passing comment on the IAC as well.
Andy, before you go there, can
yes, ma'am.
Finish up Nathaniel Witherell.
Okay. I just wanted to add two things. One, I think that I'd like to give a shout out to Larry Simon, who stepped in at a time where they didn't have senior management in place. And not only did they not have senior management, but they had the whole impact of COVID-19. And now that he has a senior management they are stepping up. We're seeing financial reports we hadn't seen before. There's certainly, these are seasoned professionals who understand what they need to do in this setting. So I think that's all to the good. The one other thing I wanted to point out is that one of the comments that was made from the admissions director is that they are reaching out to all of the sources of their business. That is Stanford Hospital, Greenwich Hospital, other hospitals and other facilities, to ensure, because some of the people have changed who are responsible for recommending that families place their patients in Nathaniel Witherell. So they're trying to ensure that they are presenting where Nathaniel Witherell is now and encourage people to come into the facility. And I think that's going to reap some rewards. So I think the news is all very good. And I think part of it is thanks to Larry, who filled in the gap period.
Yeah, thank you, Beth. He's also replenishing the board. They still have one more opening, but among the new people on the board is Chris Carter, who has kind of a media background and has been very helpful doing some of the things that Beth indicated that Larry and the rest of the team up there is pursuing. So, okay. If I go on to the next topic. Yeah, yes, sorry, Laura.
Sorry, I just had one more question on Nathaniel Witherell. I'm glad to see that we have a full complement at the management team, but I not for now, but it would be great if you could just provide us a summary of the background of the director of financial operations as well as the director of nursing. I think we have that information from John Mastronardi, but just so we know, since we likely will not meet them until maybe February when they come in for budget, that would be helpful.
I'll make sure that gets done. Good thought. Okay, if I could move over to discussing the retirement board and with a few comments on the IAC. Every year, the retirement board engages outside actuary Greg Stump of Boomershine to do a full report. And every year it's dated July 1st. This year is going to be and he does this every 5 years, a experience study, which we'll get probably sometime in the next couple of months. The reason why this is of interest is also every year the retirement board reconsiders the assumed earnings rate and the discount rate it applies on the liability. And as you make adjustments in that rate, it has an effect on our budget for the retirement board. If you reduce the rate, currently the rate's $650 for this year, and if they are considering reducing the rate from $650 to $625, primarily because of lower expectations for returns in the market. That by itself could have a budget impact of $3 or $4, possibly more $1 million. It's not strictly based on the rate, but the rate is a major driver in terms of what we have to spend in our budget to cover our retirement fund expense. Other things that are considered, and this goes back to the experience report, is the investment experience, the demographic and salary experience, any plan changes, and any changes in rate assumptions, not just the discount rate of return assumption, but also the period over which we amortize investment gains and losses, and the period over which we amortize the underfunding of the plan. By the way, as of last year, the plan was about 79% funded. It's on a scheme to be fully funded over a period of years. It will take time to get there. As an aside, we may not want to get there because for a variety of reasons, in part because if we do get fully funded, it introduces more volatility in our annual contribution, and also the risk that we may be not be able to recapture the excess funding in the future. The other challenge here is we don't have a control. The BET does not have control over what the assumed rate is. The retirement board is an independent entity, It comprises 5 individuals, including the controller, Pete, as well as 2 representatives from elected by the unions, the plan participants. I also like to make a couple of comments on Neuberger Berman, which is the outside investment manager engaged by the retirement board. They have had, I guess they've been engaged now for almost 3 years working on behalf of the retirement board. The returns they have achieved have been averaging a little bit over 6.5% since the inception of their relationship with the town. Not quite at benchmarks, but one of the reasons why the board is considering a lower rate going forward is because of the extraordinary circumstances we have now in terms of very low interest rates in a very toppy equity market. The interest rates deserve a special mention. For the past, well, first of all, the nominal rates, the absolute rates are at close to historical lows. The yield on the 10-year Treasury bond, for example, is about 70 basis points. It was just the end of July where it hit a all-time low of 52 basis points. It's hard to believe. A lot of this is driven by the actions of the Fed to buy Treasury securities, mortgage-backed bonds to help support the market and support the economy as much as they can. What's happened here is perversely that the real rates of return, which is the nominal rates minus inflation, have gone negative since the beginning of the pandemic. And we know this by virtue of the what's called the Treasury inflation protected securities, which is there's a market for these, and if you adjust those yields from the 10-year Treasury rate, you have a negative yield of about 39 basis points. It's something we haven't seen before. Anyway, so this is a difficult time. At the same time, we have the PEs in the equity market reaching recent highs. The average PE for the S&P 500 is about 26 times. Normally, it's on that over the years, it averages about 15 times. And so clearly, the lower interest rates are helping to support that, but it's a very toppy market, and it's kind of an unbalanced market, particularly when you consider the 5 or the 6 market leaders have so far outdistanced the rest of the market players. So I'm talking about the so-called FANG stocks. That's Alphabet, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, and Netflix. And also we have to add now Tesla as another outperformer. Anyway, so we don't have a direct say in terms of what the retirement board will decide in terms of a rate. I personally would welcome no change. I'd like to keep it at 650. You can argue that's the right level if you look at historical market risk premium for equities. Also, I've not seen the assumed rate is still well below that of many of our comparable communities. And finally, well, I'll just leave it at that. You know, I just will note that this is a topic on which many reasonable people can disagree. So beyond that rate, there are 2 other issues that the retirement board has to deal with over the next year. One, a question they're considering is, does active management earn an incremental return to cover the incremental costs? And second, a continuing problem is the lack of transparency with the monies it has invested in private equity investments, which is almost a quarter of the portfolio. And let me just close just by doing a quick contrast with the IAC and the OPEB trust. The monies we have invested to cover our future OPEB liabilities is about 1/20th of what we have invested in the retirement fund. It's managed by several volunteers in the OPEB trust, whereas obviously the retirement fund has a paid investment advisor. It is, we're assuming a 7% rate in the IAC for these funds. We're going to be discussing that rate next month and the month of November, and we may or may not choose to change it. And but it's our choice. You know, the IAC is an agent of the BET, and we will ultimately do what the BET will support. But we'll be having a lot more dialogue on this over the course of the fall. So that's a quick summary. I'm sorry to be a bit rambly here, but let me pause and see if anyone has any questions.
Ms. Tarkington has her hand up.
Yes, Leslie. You're on mute.
I have to unmute. Andy, I'm sorry, I was muted. I'm not sure if this is a question to you or through you to Pete Minarski, but when you're talking about the portfolio of the retirement board, they haven't yet received the return numbers on the private equity investments. Is that correct? And that's a fairly sizable percentage of the portfolio. Have they received these numbers yet, or do you have an idea when they might come in, or if they have received, you know, what kind of return is the private equity portfolio getting in today's environment? It should be much better than some of the other things you've been talking about, correct?
Well, there's always a lag. Pete, I'll defer to you.
No, that's an easy question.
Yeah.
That's a softball. We spend a lot of time on this. It's actually one of the things that delays the audit. We send out confirmations for all the banks, all the investment managers, and everybody that holds money or investments. The auditors, I have to wait till the auditors get the confirmations back, either directly from the private debt or private equity managers or Neuberger Berman, and they send me the adjusting entry. And I don't usually get all the numbers. Pine Bridge is one of the laggards till the first week of October. So I haven't gotten the numbers, but I sent the flash report to the whole group last week. If you go inside of that flash report, one of the lengthier reports, it shows you that some of them are valued at March 31st, some of them are valued at June 30th, and some of them are valued at July 31st. So it's a long-winded answer. The answer is no. I haven't gotten the trailing numbers.
Thank you, Andy and Pete.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Deuce. Moving on to item number 8, fire study and New Leb School. Let me do New Leb School. Mr. Drake, can you give us a New Leb School Building Committee report?
The New Leb School got its final and definitive certificate of occupancy on September 14th. This was a cause for celebration. It's all been wrapped up, and the building has been transferred to the Board of Education. The committee will continue its existence really just long enough to collect final monies, and the final reimbursement of an 11% reimbursement from the state grants comes after an audit, which is on the normal processes takes months. But the good news is, building which has been occupied for over a year, got its final C of O and is now in the hands of the BOE. Oh, and was under budget and will return to the town a substantial sum, which I can't tell you today.
Wow, thank you. So that's a very good process.
Thank you, Laura.
I was on the Board of Ed meeting the other night, and they didn't get to this. It was almost midnight. Ms. Moriarty, I think, was on there with me, and they had the chair of the building committee, Mr. Walco, there, and he officially handed them the building and said it's yours. And the Board of Ed formally voted to accept the building, so it's part of the charter and the grants. But yes, I think there's an audit holdout, and our Leslie's probably could tell you that's going to take a while. But good job. That was you think? What do you think you had for meetings in that project as a volunteer? 6 or 8?
That's funny, Mike. Let's put it this way: Mr. Walco probably had one every 2 weeks for 4 years or something.
Wow. Job well done. Job well done. Brings us to fire study. Mr. Weisbrod, Mr. Raymer, Ms. Faslotis, you want to give a quick update on where we are in that? It was in the controls report, but I had already checked off the box. You want to give a report on that?
Sure, I'll jump in if that's useful. The study has gone as was prepared and submitted on a first draft. There was some requests for some redrafts that came back to us on a redraft. Just recently, it has been shared now with Assistant Chief Robert Kick, I believe also with the new Chief McHugh. There will be a Zoom meeting on Thursday, I believe it is, between the steering committee and Bob Kick and Chief McHugh to share with us such observations as they may wish to make regarding that fire study. We've not seen any written comment from them yet, but we'll certainly be hearing a verbal comment from them on Thursday.
Great. Mr. Weisbrod, Ms. Faslotis? I think there's a lot of people, especially in our governmental bodies, waiting for this. August and COVID might have been a little bit of a setback, but we stuck to the process. I must say, Matrix, one of the things that, they had said all along, when we get the report, we're going to do this, then it's going to go back, and it goes to the leaders, and we're following that. I think, had we been having this meeting after Thursday's meeting, we might have more of an update of what the next steps will, but it'll be shortly right after that. So we're moving along with that. So old business is next. This is our first look at our calendar for next year. And
Mike, you mean new business, right?
I'm sorry, new business. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
This is our calendar. Obviously, this is a document. We call this the everything calendar. At our next meeting, I hope to approve it. And I know Ms. Tarkington has some very good comments to add to some of the thought that went into how the budget worked, the budget committee will be working. But you'll see what I've done here is, believe it or not, between our handbook, the town charter, and the RTM rules, there's certain dates. We still have some conflicts where we're at the same time as the RTM. I really don't. I wish I could get around that, but the holiday schedule, school schedule, it does make it some challenging. You notice we have rooms reserved because that's the way the town hall DPW runs it now. You have to book your rooms a year in advance. So Elaine has done that. This calendar, I'm going to say, is set up for non-COVID thoughts in mind. You'll notice today you've got your access back to town hall. I forwarded you that email, daytime only, so it's not even available at night. As we talk about our calendar, IT has contacted me, and there is technology coming out now with Zoom. And I don't know if for any of you who've attended the Board of Ed meetings, where they actually are having their board live, and the board members can be live in a meeting room. I think they used Coscop School last time, or they can Zoom in. The public can Zoom in. They had a public comment section. It worked. I think they had some sound problems the first time they tried it. They seem to be a lot better the second time. It's a new product, and Tom Klein has told me that probably towards the end of October, something like that. And what we can do is we can do a test and see how it works, and see how we like it. So I've sort of kept that kind of in limbo as we go. So what I would this will be under old business next month. Ms. Tarkington, I want to call on you because I know you had some comments you brought to my attention that I had overlooked. You're muted. Maybe we leave her muted.
When we looked at the calendar, the budget committee has actually been working on the dates, not only for their regular monthly meetings, but also the February department hearing dates. And so we've been working on this for weeks, but I think it's important that everyone look at this. And we have one or two conflicts that we're trying to work out too. And so we're not finished ours yet. But to get as much done as you can before Elaine Brown departs on September 30th, I think it'll just make it much easier on Pete and Roland if we can, move ahead on this. And certainly Budget Committee is working on that and trying to work out a couple of conflicts still. So more to come. Thank you very much.
That actually raises a question, if I may. Peter, with Elaine's departure, you have access to all these documents and web posting, and that you have that ability, you and Roland, to be able to do all that?
I'll let Roland, this is a team effort. Roland would want to answer that. Not yet.
Okay.
One of the things we do when people leave is we transfer all their files to a shared drive. It's called the M drive. And then I'll have access to all of them. I don't know if Roland has access right now. Do you, Roland?
I don't have access to the files now, but we will. And, you know, until we have somebody, I'll be putting the packages together. And all we need help with is just posting it on the website. And Megan's going to help us with the Zoom parts of it.
Okay. Just for everybody's knowledge, the way we have been working is that the committees, and I think Bill Drake might have changed it a little bit in audit. The way it works is the committee chair sets up the Zoom. Like I set up the Zoom for this meeting. I send it to Elaine, or in this case, maybe it'll be going to Roland. Then what happens is that's copied and pasted onto the agenda that we're working off of tonight. So if we're going to change that, we need to know. But the reason that's important is that allows the committee chair, or anybody that they want in the small committees, they may allow all four to open the Zoom up early to help, get people move from attendees to panelists. It's a little bit more work than it looks like. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. So that I would say to everybody, can we put a little urgency on responding to this, and maybe we can kind of get our comments and everything kind of set up before the end of the month, which is only about a week and a half. Can we do that? It might help. So, okay. Continuing on, let me get to our next item. Our next item is, according to our handbook, I would like to set up a special project team. Special project teams are required to post minutes, meetings, public, etc., for the biennial review of the town fund balance and debt policy. I would ask Mr. Weisbrod, Ms. Moriarty, Mr. Drake to give Mr. Deuce, who has volunteered to chair that, the help and cooperation that he needs. This year, I think I'm going to ask for a little extra focus on the fund balance policy. There's two conversations that I don't want to speak for Ms. Moriarty and I, sort of the presentation of it. We've been working with the controller, with Peter, quite a bit on that to come up with a sort of easier presentation of fund balance, and also a look at what is changing due to COVID and the economic hit, with what the credit rating agencies might be looking for in municipalities. I think when we started having a fund balance policy, the credit rating agencies were talking 5 to 10%. And we've heard all different kind of numbers in conversation, but I would ask for a special attention to be paid for that. As far as the debt policy, again, it's in our manual, and Ms. Moriarty, Mr. Drake, Mr. Duke, I think you've done this before, so I think this will be good. So I think in that case, we have to sort of, as we suggest models, give some thought on what the delay in capital, what the impact will be on that model going forward. As a side note, I'm sure we're going to have that conversation in February and March as a full BET, but as a sidebar, I just look forward to it. And I would ask, because I'm usually a little bit tighter on the time frame, I would ask that we try to complete this by the end of November, if possible. But if that's not achievable, just you can give me that kind of heads up. But that's my position. And I see Ms. Tarkington has her hand up.
You're on mute, Leslie.
You're muted, Leslie.
I'm sorry. It was on the previous topic, but we've moved on. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw your hand up. I'm sorry. Further discussion. Thank you, the four of you. It's a lot of work. My sincere thanks. It's a lot of work, and I think you'll have all 12 members, obviously, with some input and thoughts. So we'll go from that. No new business continuing. I have on the agenda ratify the police department organizational changes. I would call on Ms. Vassilotis as chair of the HR committee.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. The HR committee first discussed the actual reorganization of the police department at its July 2020 meeting. Just as a note, the police chief properly brought forth his request to the police commissioner, the town administrator, and the director of HR, and went through channels pursuant to town policy. The deputy chief position was noted as part of, hold on one second, sorry. I keep getting these crazy calls. So the deputy chief position was at the July meeting was noted as part of the vacancy report and was being filled internally. During the course of the discussion, it was questioned as to whether or not this position required BET approval. At the July meeting, HR Director Mary Pepe and Police Commissioner Fred Camillo stated that it was their opinion that BET approval was not required because it did not increase the budget expenditures, and the expenditures were in the fiscal year 20 budget. It was also noted that at that time that a captain's position would not be filled, leaving the department with 2 captains instead of 3, and the full complement of lieutenants. The chair did note that the resolutions posted by the BET, passed by the BET and the RTM as part of the budget appeared to cover this situation, and it was the chair's opinion that the BET approval was required since it added a new position at the table of organization and would likely increase the pension obligation of the town going forward. After discussion by the committee, it was agreed that the chair would request an opinion from the town attorney as to whether BET approval was required. And the police commissioner was also asked to provide the committee with financials, including any impact to the pension obligation of the town going forward. It was also noted that the next regular meeting of the BET HR committee would not occur till September, so we were hoping to get an answer prior to that. In August, as we all know, the promotions were announced by the police commissioner and the police department, and the new deputy chief was sworn in along with the new captain. Subsequent to the swearing in of the new deputy chief and the new captain, a meeting was held between the BET leadership, the town attorney, and director of HR. Present at the meeting were myself, Michael Mason, chair of the BET, Leslie Moriarty, the minority caucus chair, Vincent Marino, the town attorney, Amina Ahmed, the assistant town attorney, and Mary Pepe, director of HR. And at that meeting, the town attorney did state that it was clear that the BET should have approved the new position based on the resolutions adopted by the BET and the RTM last May. The HR committee met again this September 15th, and the positions were discussed again with the HR director. The decision of the town attorney was discussed, as well as the resolutions. And it was noted at that time that the 3 captain positions were all filled, and instead now 1 lieutenant position is vacant. I will let committee members weigh in with their thoughts if they wish to do so. The bottom line was that there was a motion to ratify the actions taken by the HR and the police commissioner and police department. That is a motion to ratify the deputy chief to the table of organization. That vote was 4-0-0 in favor of ratification. I just want to also note that you have the new table of organization as well as the old table of organization that was emailed to you early today. And I also forwarded the salaries of each of those positions. I did have a telephone conversation with the chief right before this meeting, and he highlighted a number of things as to why this reorganization was needed. As you know, they had an accreditation process that was completed in November 2019, and it gave the police department considerable insight in areas of development that are needed, especially in training and professional standards. This reorganization will allow the department to put field services under 1 deputy and support services under the 2nd, better aligning their services with a senior police manager controlling the operations, as well as mentoring the captains and lieutenants along the way. The department has also seen more technical issues arise, including cybercrime. And now we have the police cameras, which will also require expertise. So again, the vote by the HR committee was 400 to ratify the addition of the deputy chief to the table of organization. So we are recommending that the full BET ratify the position as well. Mike, I see Deborah has her hand up.
And so does Beth.
There is. You're on mute, Mike.
I'm so sorry. I try to mute like everybody else for background noise. I see Ms. Hess's hand up and I see Ms. Crumick, and I promise I'll get to that. But I know I just want to welcome Police Chief Heavey and Town Attorney Vincent Marina with us. They're joined us right now. I don't know if they want to chime in now or answer any questions after our members go. I leave it up to their discretion on that. And if they want to chime in at any time, we'll welcome that. Otherwise, I'll get to our members who have their hands up.
Chairman, I would just state, I think that the report captured the law department's position.
You better say that or Karen will be all over you.
You know, she sent me an email telling me what to say.
Oh, okay. Ms. Hess, followed by Ms. Crumick.
Yeah.
So being part of the HR committee, I would just say, part of this is a little disappointing to be, ratifying something retroactively. But as part of these conversations, what was clear, what seemed to me was maybe some ambiguity in terms of what should and shouldn't have come to the HR committee in the full BET. So while I was, from my point of view, I did vote in favor, I will vote in favor of it. I would not like to see us have to approve something retroactively again. So one of the things we talked about in HR was actually having the law committee just look at the resolution so it's more clear so this doesn't happen again. So having said that, but I'm fully in support, as I did on HR, I will, ratify this at the full BET.
And before Beth goes, this has already been on the agenda of the BET Law Committee and will be on the agenda going forward. As a placeholder. We did not discuss it at our last meeting, but it is there for future discussion.
Fantastic. Ms. Crumick, followed by Mr. Raymer and Ms. Erickson.
As a member of the HR committee, I just wanted to bring my perspective. I was really torn on our ratifying within the committee. I almost abstained and then decided that our concerns really aren't directed at the fine people of the police department. I think they're doing an unbelievably good job at the moment, given all the different issues. But what I am concerned about is the process. I know that we're going to take this up in the law committee to look at the resolutions. But I want to go back and just I think we need to get more information. We did get salary information today, but we really didn't get the information that would have shown us what salaries had been, and with this transition to this new reorganization, what they are now and what the delta is between the two, and also the impact on the retirement fund, which I believe is what really drives the resolutions. And where we get into it is that when you start changing the table of organization, what is the impact then on the retirement fund for the town? So I will approve this. I did approve it at the committee. I'm not happy with the ratification, but I think the important work is yet to be done to ensure that our resolutions are clear and that departments understand what information we need to be provided in order to sign off on these kinds of reorganizations in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Raymer, followed by Ms. Erickson, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, my remarks largely repeat what Mrs. Crumick has just said, and that is that we actually have not been given what the salary figures were on the before, only on the after. We also aren't given any figures on whether or not it increases the pension liability, the pension load, which is the relevant factor under the resolution. So I'm not sure we've actually been told the facts based upon which we're supposed to be making this decision. I also want to repeat what Mrs. Crumick said, that this is not a reflection on the people involved. We have terrific people. It's only a question of our discussing process. Exactly what is the process, and are we following process? It's also not a suggestion that the BET has any desire to start to micromanage or question the judgment of the chief when he's recommending a restructuring. On the contrary, I think on each and every occasion the chief has come to us, we're very quick to adopt and respect the recommendations that he makes. But I do think there's been a failure of process here, which is regrettable. And hopefully that's not going to be repeated. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other hands. I'd like to.
Hang on, Mike.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I lowered your hand. It's my fault. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And then, I'm sorry, before you go, Laura, and before you go, Mike, after Laura, if I can just.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
So just one comment and one question. So I think for transparency, we should try and get the police organization chart before this change and after this change posted with our packet, just so people are clear what we're ratifying here today. And I also have a question for the chief, since he's here, and I might have missed it in Karen's report. Is that lieutenant position that is open, is that going to remain open? And if so, is there any impact on delivery of police services? If I could, through you, Mr. Chair.
I know the chief is on board, and I figured it'd take him a second to unmute himself and answer that. Are you there, Chief?
The lieutenant's position remains open, and the reclassification of that position will not have any adverse impact on operations.
And just as point of information, Laura, I did send the org chart to Elaine Brown, and it will be put online as well. So that's already taken care of. And I also just on a personal note, I'd like to thank the chief and the police department. The police chief and the police department for their work and for responding to the BET's request for information in advance of this meeting. I know that they've had their hands full with the pandemic, and they've been on the front line as first responders. I just wanted to acknowledge their work and to state that they seem to be putting their training to good use, as I recently read that they managed to de-escalate a volatile situation without the use of force, as was reported in the newspaper. So I also want to thank the police force and also the chief especially for the dedication and work that he and the rest of the department are doing. And again, this is not a reflection on their work, and I do agree it's process. It was raised in both the HR committee and the law committee. And going forward, hopefully we'll not have a repeat of this.
Thank you. I have some comments in my chair's report that are applicable to this, and I'll leave those for at that point. But I just want to, part of this is chairs. You never stop learning as you serve this community, and I'll share a little excerpt from a monthly meeting between my liaison position with Ms. Moriarty and the town controller. And the town controller says, we have 14 new positions in the first 2 floors of town hall. We're losing people who know the systems and how things work and what have you. And we have a new town attorney sitting here with us. And what I learned out of this is my age-old cry for job certification. Maybe this might be the final motivator for me to really start putting that program together for us to help the departments. But here we are. We have new people, and even when we got called to the meeting by the town attorney, he said, "Look, I understand this resolution. I understand the charter. I understand the state statute, and the BET kind of has a role in this, and I kind of understand what you're talking about." And then we talked about the resolution, and I'm sure Karen and Beth are going to get handed the task of trying to just clear that up just a little bit if there's any ambiguity in that, and that's part of the process. But again, no ill intents here, but this is why we have resolutions. This is why we have process. This is why we need to continually have job certification and training for, especially the managers in town. And we have managers switching all over. I mean, it's a new. I mean, Vin represents how many communities, but I'm sure that we have some fiscal processes. He said it to me on the phone. He goes, "Wow, you have some real different fiscal practices in your town. You're in that home rule charter of yours." And I said, "Well, who told you to say that to me?" But that's another conversation. But I just appreciate all the effort, Chief, Vin, and the committee, and I really appreciate it. And the fact that we had to have a quick meeting to understand this, and that's what we have to do. That's our job in the community to because people look at us sometimes like, "What are you talking about?" or "What are you doing?" And they don't. We just have to get them up to speed. And you could see it every time there's a big change in the RTM, the same thing. So that's what we have to work on. So I see no other hands. Can I get a motion to ratify the Greenwich Police Department reorganization for?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Thank you. Ben, Jim, thank you for attending. I would like to take a little lenience here, and I'd like to skip the chair's report and do the minutes first, because I'm going to be asking for a motion to add an item to the agenda. So if there's any dissension on that, I'll stick to the agenda, but otherwise I'd like to move to item 12 first. Our July 20th, 2020 BET regular minutes. Can I get a, Mr. Drake, what am I doing your job for? That's your job. You do that.
I'll move the July 20th minutes.
Okay.
Mr. Mason?
Ms. Krummick.
May I just ask for one small amendment? I believe the attorney, Valerie Mays Keeney, her last name is misspelled. I think it's in there as Kennedy.
Yeah, that is right.
If that can be corrected when it gets uploaded.
Yes, let's fix that. Thank you, Beth.
Yeah.
Okay. So, go ahead, Ms. Tarkington.
Were the minutes seconded? I offered a second if they weren't seconded.
Okay, moved by Mr. Drake, seconded by Ms. Tarkington and I'm going to take Ms. Krummick's amendment as a correction. We're all in favor of.
The Scribner's error.
Scribner's error.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Those minutes have carried 12-0.
We also
Mr.
have
Drake?
minutes for July 23rd, which I'll move.
I'll second those.
Discussion on those minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstaining? Thank you. Can I get a motion to add an item to the agenda? The item will be minutes of the special meeting of the Board of Estimate and Taxation held on Thursday, September 10th, 2020.
So moved.
Can I get a second? Seconded by Mr. Raymer. Let me just hang on one second. I want to apologize. This is totally my fault. Mr. Drake won lottery and was in some Caribbean island and wasn't at our meeting. And Ms. Tarkington stepped in and helped us out doing the minutes. And she was prompt and got them to me. And I forgot to tell Elaine, so you can have my head for that. But I have them here. You can see them. We need a 2/3 vote to add these to the agenda, though. So do I need a roll call vote? I'm not seeing it.
I would move the addition to the agenda.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining?
Wasn't that already moved by?
Yes, but it needs a 2/3 vote to add it to the agenda.
Yes.
So
I think I moved it and Jeff had seconded it, though. I think that's the issue Leslie's raising.
So, Mr. Drake, I'm going to assume that this item is on the agenda with a 12-0 vote.
Okay.
With that said, I'll share the document. Discussion on the minutes. Do we have any discussion?
Mike,
Just speak up, please.
it's my name is in there twice in the staff.
Yeah, up front. We'll make that correction. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Okay, any other correction? Just speak up because I have it on share screen, so I can't see you raising your hands. I just want to thank Ms. Tarkington. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Seconded by Mr. Raymer. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Those have passed 12-0-0. Thank you.
No,
very much.
Actually, it's
Mr. Mason?
11-01 because
Oh,
I was absent.
I am so sorry. No more absences, Mr. Drake. That's it. We've given you the gauntlet. That brings us back to item 11. Summer's over. I can't speak for any of you, but the emails are coming in, the phone's ringing, questions on guidelines, questions on this. I want to share some of this with you. The first selectman has a downtown committee he has formally created now and working on sort of the vision of downtown. I've attended some of those meetings. They're trying to, there's a new reaction to the outdoor dining and the outdoor, and then there's talk about the Isle Beach parking lot. It's interesting. It's in its very early stages right now. I think, I can't suggest what they want to do, but I think they're working their way towards some type of a master plan, a downtown master plan. But as I get more to follow, I'll start sending you the minutes on some of those meetings as they go. A lot of people on the committee I don't know. I mean, I just don't know the people. So it's kind of interesting. I would say I had an interesting meeting that I was asked to attend with GEMS and the first selectman. I wasn't really sure what it was about, but I'm sure now. GEMS is having hardship up in the trailer up on King Street. It's decaying. And the real problem they have is the outside ground with the water and the vehicles sinking in and having to plug them in with high-powered electric cords. So they're looking for advice on how to move that project without it, going into the next couple of budgets for A&E. And, they're pretty far along because they've got some free A&E and some of their board members, but they're looking at how to do that. Fred was, our first selectman was on board, and, I gave them the suggestion that they've got to communicate. They should, they have a couple roads they can go interim or put it in a budget. But, they're saying, that the project's being delayed there's a problem and they have concerns. It was a temporary trailer. It's in its 9th or 10th year, I think, since we put it in there. But I'm just giving you the update on that. Our police department, I don't know if you know what the police department has had to endure with the helping the Board of Ed. They, fingerprinting, the police department is backed up. They shut fingerprinting down. So everybody who needs fingerprinting, that got backed up. There's subcontractors that are allowed to fingerprint in the state of Connecticut. They were closed. Now the Board of Ed is hiring added staff. They have their normal retirements, so they have to bring their normal new hires, regular routine. They're bringing in extra cleaning staff. They're bringing in extra permanent part-time staff. They're doing that. So the police department has, I don't know how they did it. They opened up fingerprinting for the BOE almost any day. They just basically, I don't even know if they went to the site and did it, but that was a big help out. I heard the superintendent give a real thanks for that. So again, just things that departments are working with departments and helping each other through all of this. It's kind of interesting to see. But what I really am more impressed to see, and I'm actually maybe recalling Ms. Moriarty, we are finally back to BT leadership, myself and the minority caucus leader, of a scheduled monthly meeting with the town administrator and the first selectman. That disappeared quite some time ago in the last term. I didn't support it when it disappeared. I think it's vital, and we all have our liaison meetings, those with the assessor and stuff like that. I think that's fantastic that that's returning. And I also want to give you an example. We had a monthly meeting with the controller this month, which is normal as part of our policy. Lengthy, Zoom, no coffee, but really incredible. I mean, I think we're coming down to the budget as we speak, as we start talking about guidelines, and we have a couple choices in front of us. We really have a couple choices on how we want to, work together. It's going to take a lot of sharing of information. It takes a lot of us. We don't want to get ourselves in a position where, we're I don't want to use the wrong word, but we need teamwork and communication. So I'm asking, I'm encouraging. I can beg if I have to, but that's what we're going to need because the departments really need it from us. The controller of the town of Greenwich, when the controller of the town of Greenwich tells me, look, you need to give the department some leadership. Otherwise, they're just going to, they don't know exactly how you're going to react and what you're going to do. That's a fair statement. And Peter attends every monthly staff meeting and knows what they're thinking and the questions they're asking him. So I never stop learning at this game. And I can tell you my evolution is now more than ever. And the problem we all sort of have, it might be a little bit of an epidemic in the nationally. If you hear something, an idea, if you can't allow each other to share ideas, whether you agree or not, you got to do that. We need to get back to that. We've had a little vacation from that just because we can't even meet in the hallways, the Zoom stuff. I mean, think of all the meetings that we've had where, you walk out of town hall, you get to share ideas. So I think that's important that we get back to that. And I'm encouraging everyone. So I can't say it any better than that, Ms. Maria. I gave it my shot. So I just want to thank everybody, and we're going to be busy. We're going to be busy. With that, Ms. Maria, you actually.
Yes,
Please.
and I just want to add to that because I think it does affect the way that we're working together, and it's really important. I'm really happy about these, the scheduled meetings. We haven't had one yet with the first selectman because communication between the first selectman and the board of selectmen and the BET, just like the BET and RTM, is really important to make our decisions and the town processes run smoothly. So I'm also optimistic that this is going to help us better with the flow of information. And I want to add one other comment. I don't know if you're getting to it, but this is our last public meeting before our assistant does depart. And Elaine, I know that you called on her at our special meeting and made comments, but I want to be able to echo those comments. Elaine Brown has supported this board very effectively for, I believe it's 10 years. Pete, you can correct me on the number there, but she has always been very attentive to the needs of every BET member, of ensuring that our committee meetings follow FOI. I think we're always pointed out by the IT department and I think the legal department on how well the BET follows its rules, and that has a lot to do with Elaine Brown. And I know that we're in the process of looking for a successor. But I didn't want our last meeting to go without adding on to the compliments you gave last time, Mike, about the support for Elaine, and we really wish her all the best.
So we have 9 days left in the month. And Elaine's last day is the last day of the month, right, Pete?
Yeah, that's correct. And she's actually worked 13 years in finance and 17 total in town.
So you may see an email coming your way about your willingness to stop by town hall one morning for something. I'm going to reach on some of the people that help me with things like that. So yeah, I was thinking the last week of the month, we typically don't have our normal meetings. So that would be the time to do it. So keep an eye on your emails for that. So we'll
Mike, I just also wanted to echo Leslie. She kind of stole my thunder here, but because I had a whole little thing prepared on behalf of the BET, but I thank her for those comments. I've gotten to know Elaine over the past 2 terms, 2 years as the majority, 2 years as a minority, and she has been the backbone of this group as far as keeping us in line. And as Leslie said, making sure that we meet deadlines, that we do everything correctly, or at least try to strive for perfection. I know that the IT departments and the legal department are panicking because she has provided input on FOI and also been extremely invaluable in posting minutes and in posting things and setting up meetings and posting meetings and making sure our videos get posted and all the rest of it. So as far as I'm concerned, she's a huge loss to the BET. I wish her all the best, and I'm sure that all the members wish her all the best as she starts her next adventure in retirement and taking care of her 2 little dogs.
That is good. We're all going to miss her.
Mike, I'd just like to add, she
Thank
has
you,
been,
Ms. Tarkin, thank you. I wouldn't want to go getting yelled at too much. I am going to do everything in my power to give all of us that opportunity to do exactly
Okay.
what you want to do right now. I think
Okay, thank you.
that, and I take a little luxury of deviating from the rules where before Mr. Raymer gets on my case, but I try to keep it sort of as we go. With that, I would like to, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Cruiser. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very, very much. And we'll, RTM is tonight, 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock tonight.